Kidding? Just one shot?
They're not all zombies, Doug. How do you fight this thing?
Maybe we could drown it in A1 sauce.
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back.
It's a dance song to get down with. About 6 feet under. Get there.
Ooh, I love this song. I'm hung up in a grave situation.
And now we come to the thrilling final episode of our radio drama.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 142 of the Rotten Reviews podcast, where we're going to be talking about and watching Gamera Vs Gyaos from 1967. But before we get that started, I hope you guys are all having a good day or evening or afternoon, depending on whenever you're listening to this podcast, and I appreciate you guys for stopping back in. We're just going to do a little bit of business beforehand before we get into this podcast. As always, I want to just promote my other channels I'm doing. Find me on all social medias at Typhonstein, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But the main thing that we've been pushing for the longest time now, which I feel like a broken record by saying it again at the beginning of this podcast, and I probably mentioned at the end of the podcast, is the YouTube channel. We're working on that a lot, trying to get like almost daily shorts out. We have the weekly gaming video coming out every Wednesday, and then I have the backlog of podcast episodes going up on there as well. There's no like full-on video of me recording the podcast and whatnot, but it is at least up there for you guys to check it out if you want to, and I would really appreciate it if you do. I'm going to hopefully get a setup of some sort for recording live podcasts, like having actual video and whatnot. I right now just don't really think my space is set up for that. You know, you can see a bunch of artwork and books in the background, but that's nothing fancy or important, so we'll see. We'll try and get things set up here, maybe do some live streams and whatnot. That's another thing I want to do. I've been streaming a little bit on Twitch, nothing like crazy or anything by any means, but I have been working on the Twitch channel a little bit, and hopefully we'll get that all running. I would love to do content pretty much almost every day of the week, but we will see how that goes, because artwork takes a lot of time, work takes a lot of time, being a father and everything takes a lot of time, and yeah, it's time consuming. As everyone knows, being an adult, it's so much fun. Can we go back to the 90s when like Saturday morning kids, you know, just sitting in front of TV with some oatmeal, pancakes, whatever it is, just watching cartoons and having some fun, watching some old commercials? I love to go back to that time, but then again, I didn't have Bills. Bills suck. Not the football team. I like the football team. I'm a Bills fan for the little bit of football that I do still watch. But yeah, I'm rambling as always, but you know, we're going to get right into the movie at hand that we're watching for our Kaiju month. Like I said, it's Gamera Vs Gyaos. It's from 1967, I believe was the correct date. It's a horror sci-fi for an hour and 27 minutes. You can watch it for free on YouTube. So as always, before we do get in the podcast, if you guys haven't watched this, if you want to pause this podcast now and go watch it for free, you're more than welcome to, but I hope you will come back because we do need you here. I like the listenership, and I appreciate everyone who's been listening to the podcast. We still have a weird number of new listeners for some reason, so hopefully you guys will all stick around. I appreciate it very, very much. And yeah, this movie has a 5 out of 10 on IMDb and a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. 79% of Google users like this movie. Release date was March 15th of 1967 in Japan. Was directed by, I'm going to butcher it, Niriyaki Yuza, who's passed away in 2004, but he also did Gamera the Giant Monster from 1965 and Gamera vs. Virus from 1968. He also did 22 episodes of Ultraman 80 from 1980 to 81, which I have to hunt that down and find that, because I'm a big Ultraman fan. I want to watch it. So of course he did a bunch of other Gamera stuff, and also a TV series for one episode called Iron King, which I'm not sure what that is, but I'll probably venture into that too, because it looks like an Ultraman ripoff. We'll see. I like that kind of stuff. I'm all for the weird stuff. And you know, I got lots of free time tomorrow, so maybe we'll dip into some other stuff, maybe make some extra content. We'll see. But the quick synopsis on IMDb is: volcanic activity unleashes a bloodthirsty monster called Gyaos. that Gamera must confront. Alright, well, I guess we're done with that part, eh? My true Canadian self just came out. I just said I don't think I've said that on a podcast episode before. Somebody wrote the storyline, though, on IMDb as well. Gamera's back and just in time to save Japan from Gyaos, which is spelled a totally different way. A mysterious bat-like creature awakened by a volcanic eruption. As in the first Gamera movie, a young boy establishes an emotional link with Gamera, and the two work together with the help of the world's scientists to put the end of Gyaos' violent rampage. Okay, so the end of that got a little stupid, but it's fine. Trivia. This is the first film in which Gamera bleeds. Spoiler, I guess, right? And out of that, there's nothing really on this on IMDb. Nothing at all. So I guess that means we should probably just get into our episode at hand, which is the reason why you guys are here. You're not here to listen to me ramble about other certain stuff, but so like I said before, if you guys haven't watched this, feel free to pause this at this point in time and then come back, after an hour and 27 minutes, because you want to listen to me talk about the same thing you just watched. It makes sense, right? And yeah, we're going to get right into the movie at hand.
Presents Saturday Night at the Movies, the television series which each week brings you the finest in recent motion pictures. Tonight,
Return of the Giant Monsters. Return of the Giant Monsters. Return of the Giant Monsters.
Also, like, I know before I used to also talk about the box office numbers and whatnot, but if it doesn't say it right when I'm looking it up, I usually don't dig any further because I'm probably going to be wrong because there's different systems that show different things. So if you guys want me to do a more deeper dive into the movie, let me know and I'll definitely be considering it because I just want to do stuff that you guys enjoy. I'm doing this all for you guys because you guys enjoy coming back and listening to me talk about it for some reason. I don't know why yet. I probably never will know why, but that's fine. I just appreciate you guys being around. And as always, I'll probably butcher the names, so I probably won't try to say the names too much. So hopefully this will all make sense. That's my issue with the Kaiju month, is I don't know how to pronounce some of these names, and it's killing me because I feel stupid enough as it is. But looking at some of these names, it's like, oh, there's no way in hell I'm pronouncing that. But yeah, the movie just pretty much starts with an eruption of the volcano, like the mention was going to. Then there's just a warning going out about tidal waves and aerial issues with the planes going overhead and the Navy ships and whatnot. We just hear the warning system going off, and then there's apparently another volcano eruption as well that's happening at the exact same point in time. Let me see a car full of what I assume is scientists showing up at these building to check out the earthquake signs and whatnot. Looking at like the gyrometer or whatever it might be called. I'm not sure the technical term, because I never am. But yeah, we see a bunch of the scientists getting ready to have a press conference to discuss the volcano eruptions and everything that's happening with the area. Oh, sorry, it's a seismograph. They actually mentioned it in the movie. So it's a seismograph they're looking at. And they're mentioning how amazing and big it was because it was quite a impressive volcano. And it's talking about the islands that were caused, or the main cause of it. Also, the dubbing on this is very weird because the one guy's voice that's in the press conference sounds like a little boy, but it's clearly an adult. But whatever, it is what it is. We see a shot of the volcano as it's erupting yet again. You see the lava flying all over the place as it's just shooting straight up in the sky, because that's what volcanoes do, right? It looks like a freaking missile going right up into the sky. Then we kind of just pan off on that little shot as we see the magma slowly coming down the volcano, and then we see people in this little village somewhere all running to get like a closer view of it with their flashlights, even though the flashlights aren't on, and it's just the family and whatnot in the village just looking up like, oh sure hope nothing bad happens. Then we see our little kid. This is a kid that has a connection with Gamera, and we see Gamera flying through the sky. It's flying around like a spaceship, which I didn't understand. It looks like it has like flares coming out the side of it. But then everyone's like, we should go home now. That's when we then see Gamera popping up, coming out of the volcano. And then we see the Japanese font and everything coming up on the screen, which I think looks really cool. I've always mentioned I've always been a big fan of that kind of style and the look and everything. I like the mainstream culture of things, if that makes any sense. And then we just see Gamera, I guess, it looks like he's sucking up the lava, but he might be trying to put it out with fire, which doesn't make sense, but it looks like he's feeding off it, to be honest with you. Then we just see him flopping up the volcano just beside it while the intro credits are all rolling, which you can't read any of it because it's in kanji, so we're just not going to attempt to do any of that kind of stuff. And then we see the whole press conference happening the next day, which I'm stupid because I didn't remember, or maybe I forgot altogether, that Gamera's attracted to lava and heat, so he was actually feeding on the lava like I thought he was, but I thought maybe it was just a really bad shot for the time period. But yeah, I had no idea. I forgot that Gamera feeds off of lava and heat sources. It's been a while. I haven't watched these since I was a kid, so I fully expect not to remember anything of these movies. That's why I'm revisiting them. I thought it'd be a fun podcast month. Let me see this like office here where they're having a business meeting where this fancy guy stands up saying how everyone's watching what the business is about to do and how they want to put on like a good show for everyone to know that they're doing the right thing. But I guess they're building like a highway or something through the area, and I guess there's a bunch of villages in the area that don't want to have the highway going through them because it's probably going to destroy the whole village. And then the guy's pretty much like, well, we're just going to build a highway anyway, so screw them. Then the fancy guy that owns the business is calling the foreman Shiro Tatsumi, I believe, who's in charge of trying to get the villages to evacuate the area so that the road can go through. And apparently he's not doing a good enough job because the guy's pretty pissed off on him. He's like, if you don't do your job, you're going to be fired. And there's no questions about it, because we got to build our road through this little town, because why not? We're not going around it. Tatsumi also mentions like, isn't it a little bit dangerous that there's volcanoes erupting right now and we're near a volcano? So can't this road maybe take a little 5-minute break so we don't die while trying to build a road and trying to get a little village to leave their home? Then we see this big helicopter flying over the area, and then it's full of people. It's full of reporters or scientists, I'm not too sure, but there's a different color area they're flying over, and then laser beams start coming out towards the helicopter, and then we just see the helicopter as like a toy just sitting there, and the laser beam literally cuts right in half, and we just see it splitting in half while people are falling out. It's not falling out of the air at all, it just looks like it's been separated and people are falling out of it. And then we see the helicopter slowly start to fall afterwards, which practical effects, it's great, miniatures and whatnot, all fun stuff. And then we see like the main police officer who's being questioned by some reporters who has no answers for them whatsoever. He's like, I got nothing for you right now. We're just gonna have to wait it out and see what's going on, what's happening. And then he just says, I got no further comment until the zoologist makes a report on it, and we'll go from there after he makes a report and see what happens. Then we cut back to that road crew who's supposed to be trying to clear out the village, and then the whole village kind of gets together and starts rioting towards the road crew to be like, you're not putting your road for your village, you're not at all, we're going to kill you and we're going to be cannibals. They don't mention about being cannibals, and then Tatsumi shows up. He's like, you know what, we can sell this, let's not hurt anyone, let's all be civil and let's get this all situated and figured out, and we'll go from there, okay guys, let's not kill anybody, please. And then this girl rides in on a bicycle, be like, just stop it, stop yelling, stop trying to cause issues. And she's talking to the villagers, pretty much telling them like, you guys got issues, just relax, we'll figure this out. And we see a bunch of the villagers talking to like the wise one of the village and filling him in that the road crew's starting to do work again. He's not too happy about it. He's not saying anything really bad about it, but you can clearly tell by the expression on his face he's not happy about it one bit. Not happy at all. Then we see the girl on the bicycle pushing her bike by as she's listening to them talk to the wise man, and she doesn't give two shits, she kind of just goes off and starts to undo her basket on her bike because maybe she's a delivery person. I don't know. Then we cut and see the road crew unloading some of their vehicles and getting their supplies all out and ready. I'm not sure if they're starting on the next section of the road or what they're doing. And then randomly we see them cutting through the bushes a bit, and then they get to another area. They're like, what the hell happened? It looks like a hurricane came through our little, workspace where, they probably had like a building set up with all their supplies, and everything has been destroyed. So they probably think it's the villagers that's done it to them. And then Tsusumi's like, yeah, probably was the villagers. And he's the foreman. He's like, but, we could probably expect this to keep happening until we come to agreement with the village down below. But, here's what it is. Let's just clean our crap up and get back to work, I guess. And then one of the villagers is like, what? Or not what villagers, one of the workers for the road crew is like, what's that? And he's pointing up at the mountain area, and we see this green light coming out of the mountain a bit, and we see like various structures of where the road's gonna go. It's kind of like a highway going through by the looks of it, because there's giant pillars and whatnot. And then everyone gathers around to look at the green light. He's like, what's that? And then they think that there might be like gold or something in the mountains. So that's why the villagers are fighting so much to keep the road crew out of the mountains, because they think they're trying to keep their gold to themselves. And Tsusumi's like, nah, doesn't matter. The expressway is going to go through these mountains anyways, so we're just going to do it anyways. And we see like this reporter guy in the woods who's videotaping the like green light coming through, and then our little boy character who's probably like one of the mains who has a connection with Gamera. He's pretty much wanting the guy to go away because the guy, you're just here because you're against the expressway coming in. And then the guy's like, well, is there an easier way to get onto that other side? He's like, nah, I don't want to talk to you. You're douche. And then he starts mentioning about Gamera, and they start talking and whatnot about that. And then we just see them cutting to walking up the hill some more as the little boy's leading him along the way. I'm not sure why. I don't know why you would want to help him out, but it is what it is. And then the guy's like, why are all these big trees knocked over? The kid's like, I don't know. I'm just a kid. What do you want me to do? I don't know anything about forestry. Next thing you know, the guy's like, look, boy, up in the woods. And then we see we're much, much closer to the green light coming out of the cave. And he's like, to the boy, like, do you know what it is? He's like, no, I don't know. So we're like, well, let's get closer and let's go take a better look at it and see if we can figure out what the green light is. Because that's always safe. And then the guy's like, does it always shine like that? And the boy's like, well, this is the first time I've ever seen it, so I don't know if it does. Even though he just mentioned beforehand that he doesn't know what it is. So why are you asking me any more questions about it? Because it doesn't make sense. And then the guy's like, boy, you ever been in there? He's like, no, but we're here, so we might as well go explore it, because why not? The guy's like, all right, well, I guess so. So the man's having the boy go first. He's like, so is it safe? Be careful. And the boy just keeps going on, walking closer and closer, farther into the cave where the light's getting brighter and brighter. And I don't think the boy cares anyways. He's got a connection with Gamera. But then this weird ass bat scares him. Just like a normal bat, but the screech is really loud. And it's like, oh my, what's that? It's just bat, guys. You're in a cave. What do you expect? It's a bat. It's not Batman, but it's a bat. Then this big gust of wind comes through, and the guy's like, that's weird. Must mean there's another opening somewhere in the cave. And then they kind of duck down a little bit, and we see the ceiling starting to crumble a bit, and the rocks are starting to fall down. It's like, I don't know if this is such a safe thing to do. The boy's up against the wall, and then the guy just starts running away, scared. And we find the little boy stuck up against the wall. He's like, I'm too scared. And the old guy's like, you know what? I'm out of here. You're on your own, kid. Call Gamera for help. Something. I'm not sticking around. And he literally books it right out of the cave, and he's just watching the stones come crumbling down. He's like, I saved myself. I'm not too worried about the kid though, so it's not my kid. It's not like I'm supposed to be babysitting him or anything. But then the guy starts going up in the air because he's standing on something he probably shouldn't be standing on. And then we see this really bad prosthetic of some sort, or model sculpture head. And I'm assuming it's supposed to be Gyaos. It could have been Gamera. I couldn't tell from the angle because it's so close to the screen. It's so far into the face, and you just see the teeth and like the eye and a little bit of the mouth moving. And that's all you see. So I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but it also looks like it's made out of like paper ceramics kind of thing. It doesn't look that great. Maybe it's made out of foam. That foam probably would have been the better answer, but paper mache works too. Ceramics, whatever. But then we see the boy running through the cave as we see these rocks starting to crumble down, and he's like, I gotta get out of here. He finally makes it out of the cave, and we see like the grass moving a bit, and he just hears something flying in the sky. Then we just see him hiding behind some like trees and stuff, and then we see a head coming out of the crevice where the green light's coming out of, because now it's like a quarry almost, and it's the bat creature Gyaos which I believe was supposed to be the creature that took away the other guy, because it kind of has the same triangle looking face. But then some rocks are falling down and the little boy's leg gets pinned and he's kind of just like hiding and he's kind of screaming for help as Gyaos is looking down at him. And we just see him like slowly walking like a bat towards the kid and grabbing the kid with these weird ass claws. But it doesn't look like he wants to eat him, you know, maybe just, you know, wants to help move the rocks away, maybe make a little nest for him, maybe make him a little buddy. But then we hear the music starting to pick up more and there's some other sounds and then the other grass starts to fall down and then we see Gamera coming for the rescue. And now the kid's all excited. He's like, hey, it's Gamera! Yay, I'm not gonna die, hopefully, unless they fight on top of me and crush me, but that's besides the point. And then the kid's fighting off the claws of Gyaos as he's trying to like pick him up kind of thing. And then Tatsumi and the road crew come up and they're like, oh my god, he's gonna kill that poor child. As we then see the kid is now in Gaios' hand as he tries to like walk or fly away. I'm not really too sure. Like the wings are kind of trying to flap a little bit, but he also just looks like he's doing this I just pooped myself kind of walk, as him and Gamera are having a standoff on either sides of the little valley area. And then we find out that the little boy is the headmaster's grandson, apparently. I knew that. I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, yeah, I had no idea. Dubbed movies, they're hard, okay? But then we just see Gamera walking around on his back legs, just, you know, screaming, wheeling his arms around. And then we see Gyaos shooting lasers out, and he actually cuts Gamera's one arm, and we see what is supposed to be blood, but it just looks like a water stream coming out of like a dark blue liquid. It's not a blood liquid by any means, but yeah, this laser beam keeps hitting him just in the same damn spot, and then eventually Gamera just falls over and he's like, ow, I'm taking a nap now. You're mean, you got laser beams. And then Gamera goes back into his shell and does this little like red shell attack on Gyaos and hits him in the chest, and the little boy goes flying, but I'm not sure like if he's flying really far away or just, you know, down a couple feet. And then Gamera pops out of the shell and starts doing his, you know, flame breath attack, and you know, tries to roast Gyaos, which is just making Gyaos retreat a little bit. I'm not sure how there's not forest fire at this point in time, because they're fighting on the hills where there's a bunch of trees, but you know, it's not a big deal. But then we see the little boy is in, I can't tell, he's either in Gaios' claw or he's in Gamera's claw. But then we see he is in Gamera's claw because somehow Gamera's able to like reach around his back and put the little boy on his back shell. I don't know how. The way the hand was doesn't make sense. But then we see Gamera back in his shell form as blue flames start coming out of every crevice and he flies away like a UFO ship. Makes sense, right? Yeah, it does. Totally does. And the whole road crew's just looking on like, oh, what's going on? And then we see the little boy on the back of Gamera's shell just being like, ha, this is fun. Then the road crew goes to run to the village to talk to them, and the village's like, I don't want anything to do. He's like, it's got nothing to do with the road route at this point in time. Little kid is on the back of Gamera, and Gamera's flying away, and they're like, oh crap, we should probably do something about that. At this point in time, I find out the kid's name is Ichi, or Aichi. I don't know how to say it. I'm listening to them say it, but I can't say it the same way. Because they keep yelling it, because apparently Gamera's in like this almost this little city or town area where he's looking at various buildings, and they're yelling up for the kid, and we just see him crawling on the back of Gamera's shell, and they're like, don't move, it's dangerous. Like, well, he's already on the back of him, so of course it's going to be dangerous. What's the worst that's going to happen? He's going to fall a couple floors, and you know, hopefully one of you guys can catch him, because you know, why not? But then it's Tatsumi who's walking up, or actually I thought he was going to walk up this crane system, but he's actually walking up or using what looks to be an elevator, but on the other stance it looks like it's like a fair ride where the cart's just going up. So I'm not sure which one it is, but it looks more like a fair ride at this point in time, but it started out like an elevator. So he gets up to the same level as Gamera. He's like, I can't reach. And then Gamera's like, okay, fine, I'll move my shell closer. And they get the Ichi back. Ichi? And then they finally all get back on the ground. It's like, okay, you're safe now. For now, at least. And we see Ichi back on the ground with all the other people, and Gamera's flying all away. And he's like, see you later, Gamera. Thanks for the ride, buddy. Thank you for saving my life again. And then the reporters all come over and start, you know, questioning him and stuff. He's like, I just want to go home and eat some Twinkies, probably, and just relax a little bit. Maybe play, like, you know, video games that aren't created yet. And then Ichi is in like this room with a bunch of other military people, like the Grandmaster and some other stuff. And Ichi's like, Gyaos had like this green laser and kept hitting Gamera's hand and almost tried to cut it off. And Ichi's like, it's a bird. And then one of the scientist guys like, nothing like this has ever been seen by human eyes. I'm like, well, you can deal with Gamera, and apparently that's been seen before. So why is a new monster really that big of a deal? Anything could be living underneath the ground somewhere, resting, right? And then the scientist guy is talking about the supersonic ray that apparently is so strong that it goes past the human ear, and apparently he wants to use that to attack the monster because he thinks of the hearing of the monster is going to, be strong enough to affect them, I guess. And he believes that Gyaos has supersonic waves as well, even though I haven't seen him use the supersonic waves. Maybe I was just oblivious. Maybe the lightning bolt laser thing is supposed to be supersonic rays. I don't know. Fun fact, according to the scientists, apparently Gyaos is supposed to have a fourth throat for just creating his supersonic waves. If that makes sense, what does he do with the other two throats? And then they're planning to attack Gyaos from the back because apparently he doesn't move that much, and they're hoping by attacking him from the back they'll avoid his death ray, is what they're calling it now, because even though he hasn't used it to kill anyone, but we'll call it death ray anyways. The scientists like, no matter what, even for science, we must destroy Gyaos because that's the best thing to do, because we can't sit around and wait for it to attack a big city. We must just deal with the problem now and get it done with. Let me see Ichi and the rest of the people watching from this building, which apparently has a great view of the mountain where Gyaos comes out of, because we see the green light still coming out of that mountain, and then we see these fighter jets trying to bomb the area, but then we see Gyaos' laser beam coming out and just literally cutting these space fucking looking jets in half like it's no big deal, because they don't look like normal jets. Maybe it's just the way they were designed back then. And then all the jets get destroyed, and the military guy's just like, god damn it, wasn't expecting that to happen. And she's like, too bad Gamera's not here, because Gamera could pretty much, deal with him. And he's like, I guess he's just out healing his hand up. You're living in the ocean. And we cut to like this underwater scene where we see bubbles coming up, and we just see Ichi yelling for Gamera to cure itself and come back soon, hopefully. And then we see Gamera underneath the water as the bubbles are coming out of every area. As we see his forearm is like a green slimy, like a light bluish, almost green slime looking area, and it's just kind of gooing in the water. I'm sure that's not great for the other life forms that live in the water, but it doesn't look like there's anything around him at all. A little bit of coral. But then he starts to like smoke as the hands healing more, I guess. I don't know. We see Ichi waking up to the TV making weird sounds. But then there's also like this pot that's on an open flame, just burning away. And he's, calling for his sister and his grandfather. And nobody's answering up at first, and then he, finally finds where they are in the home, and they're looking out this window as they just see the horses all going crazy. And apparently, Gyaos is coming out of the mountain again, and she's like, "I'm scared. Can I go back to sleep, please?" And then, I'm not sure if it's his mother or his sister that's like confronting him, like holding him because he's scared. And then we hear Gyaos screaming in the background. He's like, "Oh crap, I'm scared." And then it's like the next day, and we see this like barn area just pretty much destroyed, or maybe it's just like part of a barn. And then we find out it was actually supposed to be a cow farm, and all the cows are gone. So I wonder where they all went. And of course, the owner of the farm is pretty pissed off because all his livestock's gone now. So he's running with the shotgun, just shooting at the mountain, even though he doesn't see anything up there. Pretty much just saying, I'm going to kill you. Even though all you guys like a shotgun or a cheap little rifle, that ain't going to do shit to hurt Gyaos other than piss him off and come back to eat your future cows. But then we find out the cows actually aren't dead. Apparently they all ran away because the two road guys are asking for some food or something, and they're like, "Can I have some milk at least?" Because nobody in town will sell us anything. He's like, "How am I supposed to sell you milk? All my cows are gone. Get off my damn land, alright?" He's pretty much getting pissed off with them, telling them to leave the land and never come back again. Then we see Ichi apparently playing with a toy, which is a police car. But I didn't know if it was going to be an actual scene of a police car driving through, just because, it's a Japanese movie and it's the 60s, so God knows. But apparently his grandfather is having a meeting with the other town folks to try and figure out what's going on. And they're deciding if they should sell their land and get the cash and just clear out and move on to somewhere, that doesn't have, hopefully, a Gyaos or a Gamera in the area. That way they can go back to living a normal life. And they just don't know what to do anymore because everything that's going on at this point in time. And grandfather's like, you guys can't show fear, because if you guys show fear, then the road company is going to be like, you know, we're going to give you less money for this property, and in fact they're never going to be able to survive off of what they get. And he's just like, you know, you guys get to be strong and not show any weakness at all, and if we decide to sell the land, then we'll go from there. Then we see Tasumi talking to his crew. He's like, what, you guys are all leaving? He's like, yeah, there's no work here, and I'd rather not die by Gyaos. So once you get things figured out and under control, then we'll come back to work. And Tasumi's like, yeah, once everything's figured out, we'll get you guys all back to work. And then we find out Tasumi's willing to stay at the road crew area because, you know, like, I'm not leaving until I get orders to leave, because I'm going to stay here. This is my job, and I'm just going to, you know, stay here and see what happens and hopefully not die. And then out of the woods comes Ichi. He scares Tasumi and the two road crew people that are left with him. But once Ichi comes out of the bush, Tasumi just laughs it off. It's like, it's just you, little boy. That's when Ichi's mentioning that Gyaos apparently never comes out unless it's nighttime. He's a nocturnal animal, and then we cut to the scientists talking about it, discussing how they think Gyaos is also a nocturnal animal as well. You know, bring it more to the fact that he's a bat creature than anything else. And then Tatsumi's there as well, talking about it, being like, you know, we can do whatever we want during the daytime then, because nothing's going to happen because Gyaos isn't going to come out. So we just have to be worried about at nighttime, because that's when he's active again. And that's when they also come up with the idea that they should turn on all the lights at night, and hopefully that will confuse Gyaos into thinking that it's still daytime. And then we see two of the road crew workers turning on a bunch of lights all over the area to try and keep Gyaos away from them. That way they'll be safe. And then as they're setting up the lights, we also hear a blast going off, and he gets all scared, and they think it's Gyaos coming. And then Tsusumi's like, just relax, it's just a giant flare going off, guys, so you don't have to freak out so much. It's going to be okay guys, just chill down. And then they're like, yeah, we knew it was a flare, just keeping you on your feet, that's all. We knew it was a flare the whole time. Yeah, sure did. Then we see Tatsumi and his other two road workers are all going to take shifts at night to try and stay awake, and they have a sleeping bag and a radio, and they put the radio on, and then the radio starts acting up and making weird sounds, and then they look into the mountain area. That's when we see the green light starting to flash a little bit more, and like, they're hugging each other, holding each other, you know, trying to keep safe and whatnot. A little bit scared, but you know, they're gonna get through the night just fine, I'm sure. But then the radio starts acting up more, and the actual lights start to flicker more as well, while this Gyaos attack essentially is going on. But then they hear the Gyaos scream, and of course we find out all three of them actually fell asleep at the same time. And then the other two are waking up inside the building, looking out the window, and that's when we see actual Gyaos coming out of the mountain area. And then they all run outside to get ready to set off a giant flare, which looks kind of weird, I guess. But, you know, you make do with what you got. And then the flare sets off the warning shots for all the military to start firing off their tanks. We see the little miniature set up as we see all these tanks shooting off, but it looks like they're shooting laser because that's just how movies looked back then. And they're just literally blasting the crap out of Gyaos, and hopefully going to take him down. But, you know, shocker, it's probably not going to do much other than piss him off, because, you know, it's a kaiju movie. That's when we see Gyaos in full like bat form with his wings extended as kind of flapping. It kind of looked like to give like a wind attack, pretty much like a whirlwind attack, like a Pokemon attack. And then we see like pieces of the building flying out, and then somehow we see one of the road workers like up in the air as if he's, you know, being pushed back by the wind attack. We can just tell he's like in a harness with a rope attached to him, just flying in the sky a little bit. But then we see the tanks all starting to fly back, and everything pretty much being destroyed because of the Gyaos' wing attack. Even though it looks like Tatsumi and the road crew are closer than the tanks are, but they don't fly nearly back as far, or the buildings don't get nearly as destroyed. But, you know, it is what it is. We're not trying to be scientific or logical about this at all. It's just a movie from the 60s. And then we see them giving out an emergency warning because apparently Gyaos is flying near the city now, because that's going to be bad, because he's going to start destroying everything like all the other kaijus do in the movies. And we see Gyaos flying over one of the cities, not sure where, but he's using his laser beam attack, pretty much destroying all these various buildings. And then we see like this bullet train coming through as a bunch of people are freaking out because, like, you know, Gyaos is pretty much flying right over us, guys. I'm a little bit scared. And then we see like hydro lights all going off on top of or power lines, I should say, going all off on top of the tracks. And then this like wind tunnel going through it. And I think the train's stopping at this point in time, because if it doesn't, they're all going to die essentially. And then he uses his laser attack, but somehow just cuts off the top of the train all the way down. And we just see everyone looking on scared shitless pretty much. And then we just see him flying through buildings, just destroying the set, which I'm sure took a lot of time to set up, because, you know, Bad Gyaos. Bad. But then he's pretty much like resting his wings on top of the train as everyone runs off screaming, as he's just pretty much shooting his lasers up everywhere. And then he goes and grabs, I think, 3 little people that are running away. And I guess, they're going to be a nice little snack. And we just see him moving his teeth, like munching on something. Like he just ate a couple people. And then we just hear the report going on about how Gyaos hates light. So they turn on every stadium light that they can find, essentially, to try and hold him back. But it doesn't seem like it's really working that well, because we just see him flying around the city a little bit some more. But he's not destroying anything at the moment. He's kind of like avoiding everything. But we see a bunch of people in the stadium, because that's going to be the #1 spot to hopefully keep everyone safe, is this big baseball stadium. As we just see Gyaos like hovering above it, just making circles the whole time, really wanting to attack those people, but he's like, I don't like light, it gives me a headache. And then he flies off into the fog and clouds. And then we see this guy in a car driving, as the other guy in the back seat's like, Gyaos has to be close by. We need to get a picture of that. Be worth your fortune. The guy's like, I don't want to get that close. He's probably miles away. And then we see Gyaos just blasting stuff. And then the car gets split in half by one of the laser beams, because it's just a funny looking scene, to be honest with you. And they're like, stop the car, the other guy's in their half. It's like, okay, I guess we'll stop the car. And then we just see the one guy jump into the driving side of the car, because somehow it still drives, even though it was literally just cut in half. And he's trying to take pictures as he's driving away. And you see Gamera coming in his like turtle form with the blue flames coming out of every orifice and hole, as he's flying around, and he kind of like goes at Gyaos and kind of like attacks him. And Gyaos is getting all pissed off, so he's flapping his wings a little bit more. And then he comes in to do like a shell attack again, and he pretty much misses Gyaos and then crashes into a building. We see the building blow up. But Gamera's not done yet, because he's come back for another shell attack, and we just see Gyaos and like a T-pose just flying mid up in the air, avoiding it because there's not much mobility in this suit. And then we just see them flying at each other, trying to play like a game of chicken with one another to see who's going to take the hit and who's going to get their ass knocked out, essentially. But then Gyaos kind of just flies above Gamera and like hits a shell and shoots him down to the ground area, or near the ground. And then we see Gamera just coming back up, because he's it's the same scene all over again, just them flying around, trying to chase each other down. Then we see Gyaos trying to get in some laser beam attacks on Gamera. And he's hit him a couple times, but it doesn't seem to be phasing him at all. And then we see, we kind of see like Gamera attacking Gyaos, but it's like Gyaos is stuck underneath Gamera, even though Gamera's upside down. And then we see this like smoke or fumes coming out. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like a sleeping gas powder against Gyaos or what's going on. It's a little bit confusing, not gonna lie. But then next thing we see is Gamera like falling out of the sky with no more blue smoke or flames coming out of him. And then we just see Gyaos V-lining down out of the sky towards him, and it just keeps cutting back and forth between the two of them. And then we see Gamera crash into the water, and then everyone on this military or naval ship fall overboard, and it's like, oh crap, why were we so close to him? But then we also see Gyaos going down the water, and apparently he's like a cat. He doesn't really like water because he probably can't fly it, and he's like trying to fight out of it. But then we also see Gamera like grabbing onto his feet and trying to pull him down into the water by the looks of it. It's not that great of a shot. Like the saturation and the color is very dark, so it's hard to make out what's actually happening here, or if it's just like a puppeteer trying to hold Gyaos up in the sky. But then we see that crew from the boat all overboard watching, and then we see Gamera trying to pull Gyaos down as it starts to lighten up a bit, because now the sunrise is starting to come up, and Gyaos isn't happy because the center of his head starts glowing red for some goddamn reason. I'm not sure if that's a weakness. And then we just see him getting more and more pissed off as his foot is pretty much stuck in Gamera's mouth, as Gamera's trying to pull him down into the water as he's shooting laser beams, just trying to get away as the scene starts getting brighter and brighter. Gamera takes a few laser beams right into the dome of the head and pretty much lets Gyaos away, to give Gyaos enough time to pretty much fly away and hide back in the mountain, as Gamera's sitting in the water screaming at him because he's not done with this fight yet. Then we see these two guys just randomly walking around this waterfront construction area, and then one guy's like, hey, look at that, and they start running down this ladder. And then we see I guess it's kind of funny, it's two toes just sitting in the water, and they scream, it's like, it's Gyaos' toes, and run away scared. And then they go get the guards and everything out, the police officers like, come look, toes just in the water, crazy. And then the guys are like, the toes have gotten smaller. They were bigger when we first found them, because apparently that's important. And then we see the toes in this medical research center, and they're kind of, it's like, I swear the toes are 5 times bigger than when we first found them. And apparently they're shrinking as the time goes by. And they want to see if there's something they can figure out in order to fight against Gyaos. Maybe this will help them out in the long run plan. And then we see Gyaos inside of his green glowing cave, because he doesn't like light, but he's got no problem with the green light. And then we just see a shot of his foot as he's like, ow, I'm missing toes. You meanie. But then, you know, 2 more toes just start popping out because he apparently can regrow his limbs. I don't know bats can do that, but, you know, it's Japan, so it's okay. And now the scientists have the idea to do an ultraviolet test in hopes that will, I guess, weaken the toes? I'm not sure what their game plan is at this point in time and moment of watching it. Then as they're doing the ultraviolet test, they're watching from another room with the big window and stuff, and they just see the toes shrinking as the ray is hitting the toes. Like, oh wow, something's actually happening. It's working. And the scientists are like, well, if Gyaos was in the sun too long, then he would probably die then, right? Yes, he probably would die. Then we just cut back to Gyaos regrowing his toes again, because we didn't just see that scene like 2 seconds ago, but it's fine. It is what it is. He's all happy he's got his toes back, so he kicks some rocks, and he drops a stalactite or whatever, stalagmite, whichever one it is, that's from the ceiling, onto his toe. He's like, oh, why did I just do that? Oh. And then he screams, because he's in pain, because those are 2 baby fresh toes that he just dropped whatever stalagmite on top of. Their one planned attack was to use like a giant projector to try and attack us, and they're like, that's not going to work. It's not going to be mobile enough, so we're going to have to lure it out at night at some point in time and keep it outside in the sun till the sunlight comes up, and then keep it in the sunlight long enough for it to actually be affected and kill itself, essentially. And then Ichi comes running out. He's like, Gamera beat Gyaos, didn't he? He beat him, right? And then the military guys are just looking at him like, I won't go that far yet, kid. And then Ichi mentioned that when he was on Gamera's back, Gamera flew straight the whole time and didn't do any spins. And then they mentioned that the way to immobilize Gyaos is to spin him so much that he gets dizzy and doesn't know how to coordinate, which I don't know how they're going to do that, but, you know, it is what it is. So then they come up with an idea to build a pedestal to make it spin to confuse Gyaos enough. And then she's like, you don't have to build one, there's one right out there. And they all look up and it's like, oh, okay, you want to use the spinning like hotel Highland like music park piece? They're like, all right, whatever, it's already built, so might as well do it anyways. And apparently we cut to them having the pedestal fully reinforced, and they're going to lure Gyaos onto the pedestal somehow. Not sure how yet, but, yeah, I'm sure they got it all under control, right? Then we see Tatsumi lowering down this big giant metal dome. I'm not sure where they got it from or how they built it, but they're building around this like control panel area that they got, because they had this big giant plan. This is their mega massive plan. And I guess their main plan to lure him out is to make synthetic blood to lure him out, because he likes the taste of human beings. So they're making like a giant bird bath on top of this pedestal area to try and lure Gyaos in, which I guess if it works, right? Even though he's not a bird, he's a bat, but that's besides the point, right? But anyways, this dome area that they're building is actually like the main headquarters base that they're watching the pedestal from. I'm not sure if it's going to have lights on top of it or not, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And then, of course, the villagers come in and talk to Tatsumi. He's like, you know what? We're not opposed to the road anymore. You know, let's just get it done in Norwith. But let's deal with, Gyaos first. And Tatsumi's like, my hands are tied. I'm not actually buying the property. We'll deal with that once we're done. The main issue at hand right at this point in time, which is not buying your land for to build the road. We got to deal with Gyaos first. And then the grandfather's like, you know what? I told you guys, if you're going to show weakness, they're just not going to buy the land. So, it is what it is. We told you what to do. And Grandpa was like, I'll handle the negotiations. Don't do anything else that's stupid. Because apparently they think Tatsumi and the company is going to take the road a different area because of all the hassles that they've had in this area so far. Which would make sense. You don't want Gyaos or another monster coming back. Probably destroy the whole freeway and everything. And then we see back in the science lab, they've made a synthetic blood. It's just like human blood. And they're all excited because, time to lure a big giant bat creature into a bloodbath. And we see they're actually going to get ready to start this operation tonight because they want to get it done and over with, which I can't blame them. And then we see military helicopters flying in the sky, and they got like the synthetic blood, I believe, coming out. Kind of just looks like they're using pesticide or like a smoke cannon behind them, but they fly over the Gyaos mountain, and then we see the green light starting to show up some more, and they're aiming for the merry-go-round area to try and lure him into that spot. Because on top of the merry-go-round area, we see this. It almost looks like the blood is coming out as a smoke. I don't understand. It should be liquid, but I guess the smell of it. But they're hoping that, the smell of the blood and everything in there will bring Gyaos out. And we see the mountain starting to glow a little bit more. And then, of course, we hear Gyaos screaming, and we see his head start to pop out of the mountain. So I think it's going to work. And the military and everyone that started freaking out. It's like, oh, it's actually working. Gyaos is coming out. Get in the little dome thing that we made. Because that's going to keep us safe. Probably not. Anyways, Gyaos gets so excited by the smell of the blood that he's flying so fast that buildings are starting to break there around the area as he's flying right to the bird bath area, but he flies right past it. I'm not sure if he's just making like a big circle around as he's trying to scope out the area and make sure it's not a trap, but he's a blind bat anyway, so he's not going to notice the difference. He does a couple circles of the area and everyone's getting scared because they're not sure what's going to happen. Then we see Gyaos landing on the pedestal area, and he's pretty much just inhaling the smell of the blood like a crackhead, but then we just see him drinking all the blood because apparently there's actual liquid inside there, and so there's the smoke in the liquid. There's like a combination. So now that he's on it, they're starting to spin the pedestal to try and confuse him, to mess him up so he can't fly away in a proper way. And then we just see him still feeding on it as he's just spinning around in a circle, just having a fun time. Looks like he's just out there, having a blast that night. And we see them speeding up the rotation, and Gyaos is kind of just like his head's just flying all over the spot. Like, well, the engine's supposed to hold up for 2 hours, under the strain and the weight. So hopefully it's only 2 hours or less than 2 hours for the sunlight to come up. But then underneath the gyro or the cylinder thing, we see electricity issues. Things are starting to overheat, starting to spark, starting to catch fire. I don't know why that was so hard for me to mention, but it's getting late at night at this point in time. So words don't make sense to me, like always. That's just the joys of my podcast. But yeah, we see the sun starting to come up as the pedestal still spinning around as Gyaos is still, feasting on the blood and the smell. But then his head's starting to glow red as he's starting to get weakened from the sunlight. But he's like, you know what? There's too much good blood right here. I can't leave just yet. I gotta make sure I get it all. But at this time, as this is all happening, they're starting to lose power on the pedestal area because it's all starting to break and all starting to overload due to the weight and everything that's happening. So they're hoping that it'll hold out long enough to cause, Gyaos to, die. But they're assuming that at this point in time, it's not going to last long enough. And then we see outside the power lines are starting to spark and surges are starting to go all over the place. And everything's pretty much starting to fall apart because of the weight of Gyaos on top of this cylinder. And then everything just stops. It starts spinning and the blood smoke stops coming out. And then Gyaos kind of falls off of the pedestal and crashes into the power lines. And then he's all pissed off because there's no more blood. So then he starts beating up the building that has the pedestal on top of it because he's not happy because he's not being fed anymore because he's a brat. Then the military and scientist guys are all looking on side like, God damn it, our plan was just a failure. And then we see Gyaos flying off back into the mountains to go restore his health because the sunlight's out now. And then they give a broadcast. I was like, oh, hope has failed because now our plan has failed, so we're pretty much screwed, guys. And she's like, oh, Gamera was here, it would have been fine. And then we see the villagers all riding in front of the old grandfather's house. He's like, we're never going to be able to sell our land now because we listen to you, because they don't want to buy our land now, so now we're going to be poor forever. He's like, well, how's that? What? No, go away. And then they're like, well, they're not going to build the freeway anymore. And he's like, well, a change like that's going to cost them millions, so they're going to build the freeway. So they're going to they're going to buy the land. Don't worry about it, guys. Just, be reasonable with this. They're just a little bit worried about Gyaos being in the mountain. But we'll get it all figured out. Don't worry about it. And Ichi comes out and starts throwing toys at the villagers because you guys are all bad men for getting mad at my grandfather because, they don't want to buy your land. You guys are all being bullies and stuff. Then we cut to Ichi inside the house. They're drawing a picture of Gamera's. And the mom, I think, it's like, how can we get a hold of Gamera? He's like, well, we built a forest fire. Gyaos doesn't like the light, and Gamera feeds off of the flames and the fire and whatnot, so we bring him in. And they're interesting plan. The grandfather's overhearing this, so he takes it to Tatsumi and mentions to him, he's like, well, what about Gyaos putting out the fire? And he's like, we'll just keep burning stuff. We'll just keep burning stuff until it takes over Gyaos. And, Tatsumi's like, that's going to cost a lot of land damage and stuff. And he's like, I don't care. Let's just get rid of Gyaos altogether, okay? So they're like, alright, well, you know, it's probably our only hope at this point in time, so let's try and start a big enough forest fire to hopefully get Gamera into the area. And then we see them just cutting right down, cutting a bunch of trees down to get, you know, a big enough fire started, or area start for this fire. We now see it's nighttime, we see these jets flying over where Gyaos usually sleeps, and they're setting up these like napalm missiles or something. I don't know. It's just these missiles that come out, and then once they hit the ground, everything goes up in flames, which then upsets Gyaos and wakes him up from his slumber. And he starts screeching as it looks like he's on fire, or it might be just the area around him's on fire. But then he apparently has like this green smoke that puts the fire out, which, you know, it looks like pea smoke. But we're just gonna go with it anyways, right? He's like a built-in, fire extinguisher. And then we see the military continuing the fire attacks, and Gyaos still fighting it off with his yellow extinguisher pea smoke, because it looks like yellow smoke. Well, it is yellow smoke. And then Ichi's like, Gamera, and then we see Gamera flying in as, you know, his turtle shell form with blue smoke coming out. He's like, aha, see, I told you Gamera would come. Just like I told you, the fire brings Gamera. And we see Gamera and Gyaos having a little standoff, and then Gyaos starts shooting his laser beams at Gamera's shell, and Gamera's not too happy about it, nonetheless, which is fair to understand. You know, this other monster is just shooting lasers at you before you even ask him questions. Like, then again, you've seen him a couple times at least. But then Gamera decides to fight back with some flamethrower style breath, which Gyaos isn't happy about either, but, you know, he deserves it because he's a jackass. Then Gamera goes into his, like, flying turtle shell form and hits Gyaos in the back, and then his back lights start to light up, like he's doing like a speed boost, as Gyaos is now face down on the ground. He's unable to get up at this point in time, and he pretty much like lunges and jumps on the back of Gyaos, and then like starts biting at his wings to, you know, pretty much immobilize him. Gyaos gets away from Gamera, even though he looks like he's missing half his wing now at this point in time, or a good chunk of his wing, because it was stuck inside Gamera's mouth. But then Gyaos pretty much just comes back at Gamera, you know, shooting the laser beam, and then Gamera's got these new moves now because he's ducking every single laser shot that's coming at him. I'm not sure where he learned these new moves, but I guess he was watching some boxing matches by the looks of it. But then, like, Gamera's tail gets hit, and it looks like it drops him, and then Gyaos drops on top of him and picks him up by the shell and starts flying him through the sky, as Gamera's now fully in the shell, and literally drops him so that Gamera drops through the ground. And then he decides to pick him up to try and do it again, because, you know, that wasn't enough. Let's do it another couple times to try and, you know, fully take him out of the battle. Even though it's just the same shot again, but they inverted the angle, so now it's from the opposite direction. And on the third time, Gamera tries to drop essentially Gamera onto the little dome building that the scientists and everyone's inside of, but he just crashes in front of the dome, and then we see Gamera getting pretty much laser shot in the face a couple times, which isn't really making him too happy. And then he starts digging around for some rocks, and Gamera literally grabs a rock and literally chucks it and hits Gyaos right in the mouth, to the point where Gyaos is like, oh, I can't get it out of my mouth, I'm gonna choke now, which gives Gamera enough time to turn into his laser or flame shell side and pretty much bump Gyaos over, pretty much bumping him face down. And then Gamera's climbing on top of him, pushing his face down into like the water by the looks of it, because they're like on the shore. And then Gamera just literally starts chomping on the back of Gyaos' head and neck, and we see this pink blood liquid, strawberry milk coming out at this point, where now Gamera now has like full neck inside, and he's doing like a gator roll maybe of some sort. It doesn't make sense, because now it looks like Gyaos is on top, even though he's getting bit by the back. But now the sunlight's starting to come up, and Gyaos' head is starting to glow red, but Gamera's not letting go at all. He's holding on for dear life, essentially. And now that the sun's coming up, Gamera is now back in his shell form and spinning around, but yet still has a hold on Gyaos somehow. I'm not sure how. And then as the sun's coming up, he's flying him closer to the top of the volcano, which I'm not sure still how he has a hold of him, because when he's in the shell form flying around, his arms and everything are inside, but apparently at this point in time his head's still sticking out somehow. And then we see Gamera literally dragging Gyaos up the side of the volcano by the back of his head, as the sun's, you know, pretty much almost fully out at this point in time. He's pretty much dragging him inside the volcano to pretty much, you know, die because he doesn't like light and stuff. And then as they're falling into the volcano, we just see one laser beam coming out, and then it slowly starts to dim away. And then the grandfather's like, well, I guess you guys are happy now, Tatsumi. You're able to progress on the freeway. And they're like, yeah, I guess we'll start tomorrow. Like, oh, okay, no big deal. We'll just get back to work tomorrow. It's fine. Everything's fine, guys. And then we see Gamera flying out of the volcano, spinning around like a crazy motherfucker. As Ichi's like, thank you, come back again soon, goodbye. And the movie ends. Yep, that's in the movie. Like, there's some more to the movie. Like, there's just some weird Japanese singing. I'm assuming it says the end. And then we just see Gamera flying around upside down with his blue moves. And then we see him breathing fire a couple times, consuming some fire, fighting other monsters that aren't even in this movie. They were in the movies prior to this one, but that's about it. But nonetheless, I enjoy this movie. I think it's fun. I think it's silly. I think it's really silly, to be honest with you. But on the Rotten scale of 10, I would give this one a 5.5 out of 10. I think it's fun. Gyaos isn't my one of my top kaiju, and Gamera's not bad. I think I like Gamera a little bit more than Mothra, maybe. I don't know, I'd have to really think about that. But definitely a fun movie, and you can watch it on YouTube for free, so definitely go check it out. Which brings us to our movie we should pick to watch for next week, which I think might be the last one for the Kaiju series, because it's going to be the first movie of the next month. I don't know. We'll see. I might do another one after that. I don't know yet. But we're going to watch. So we're watching a movie that I'm going to be pretty excited to watch. It's Ultraman Great: The Battle for Earth from 1990. I love Ultraman. I love Kamen Riders. I love Power Rangers, Super Sentai, all that kind of fun stuff. Guyver and whatnot. So I'm definitely looking forward to doing Ultraman. So maybe I'll do 2 episodes. Maybe we'll see. Because I like Ultraman a lot. Maybe I'll fit in some Power Ranger episodes. I don't know. That could be a fun little episode, like bonus episode kind of thing. We'll have to wait and see though. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But yeah, that's what we're going to do for next week. Ultraman Great: The Battle for Earth. So definitely check that out. You can also watch that free on YouTube. It's an hour and 35 minutes almost. So definitely recommend checking that out. But enough of that. As always, make sure to check out the outro band, Toronto-based horror band Blood Opera. Their links will be down below in the description. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Facebook, pretty much everything in it. Everywhere. Definitely check out me on all social medias at Typhonsign. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube being the main thing that we're pushing a lot here, as you guys already know, because I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. So definitely go check that out as well. I would appreciate seeing you guys all on the YouTube channel. I see it growing, and I see the podcast growing, and I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you guys for hanging out. And if you listen to this long, I don't know what's wrong with you guys. I really don't know. It's been over an hour
of me recording. I don't know what's going to be like editing wise, but it was an hour of me chatting and talking during this movie. So yeah, I will talk to you guys all later. Peace!
I am the whisper in the classroom, the writing on the wall. What's blood for, if not for the shedding?
You used to play that childhood game, didn't you? The one where we changed